What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Humble Billings. This is the Honest Recruitment Podcast. In the hot seat today, we have Chris O'Connell. How are you, mate?
Very good, mate. Honoured to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no problemo. A bit about Chris. So, ex-global top biller S3, £25 million recruitment business owner, turned purpose-led non-executive director as well, and business coach. Also run your own podcast, don't you, mate?
I do, mate. Yeah, I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, called the Purpose-Led Leadership Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We actually share the same studio, so you've been filming in here today.
Yeah. It's good to be on the other side of the mic.
From host to guest. So look, I mean, normally I do speak to quite a lot of individuals who want to come on the pod. Obviously, you approach myself, and you know, I think your story I was really bought into, and it resonated with me a lot. So I'm really excited to dive into that today, Chris. And again, normally what I do is I normally start by rewinding the clock.
Yeah.
In terms of your career journey, but today we're going to actually rewind the clock on Chris's journey.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just sort of rewinding that, talk to me a bit about, essentially, you mentioned you were born in a caravan. Let's start there.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was born grew up in a caravan. So my dad used to work on the railways.
Yeah.
And at night time, when I was 2, my brother was 3. He came home, I think it was about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning after his shift. I was naked, hanging out the window of the caravan, pretty much about to fall out. My brother had raided the fridge. He was sick everywhere. He said, "Where's mummy?" And she'd basically fucked off, abandoned us, left us there all night. Took whatever possessions my dad had, and then I haven't seen her since. Well, actually, I have seen her since, and I'll tell you about that later. 5 years ago, I tracked her down. But anyway, so she just basically left us, abandoned us. My dad wasn't financially, emotionally able to look after me and my brother. Just wasn't very able, affectionate or ready to do that. As quite a simple guy, never really hugged us or anything like that. It just was too much for him to be able to do that. So I was then, me and my brother were then fostered for 4 years between the ages of 3 and 7, and that gave me an idea of what a family life would look like. But
are you still in touch with your foster parents?
Yeah, well, my foster dad died, but my foster mum, I still am. She told me, and my dad also told me, that when my dad used to go out, he used to have a Fulham Football Club pennant in the front window of the caravan, and then my mum used to turn it around a certain way to indicate that she was open for business. What that means is that she was a prostitute, and often my dad would go to work, and whilst me and my brother were in the caravan, she would, have her clients in there, and all this kind of stuff came out. So my dad then took us back into a council flat. I think I was about 7 or 8, and you always remember have to get up really early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, to walk to his work and then walk to school on my own. So from a very young age, had to fend for myself, kind of parent myself, and it was a difficult start. Then we moved into a council house, and he remarried, and she abused me quite badly, emotionally, physically, and mentally. She stopped me seeing my friends. If they phoned up, she would say, "He's fucking doing the hooverings." And every time they'd come round, she'd slam the door in their face. Or if I ever went out, she'd lock the door, not let me come in, and she would slap me around a bit and just make me feel absolutely terrible. So the first 2 female figures in my life, my mum and my stepmum, my mum abandoning me and my stepmum doing that to me, has obviously had an effect on me as an individual.
Yeah.
As a further example to her, I'll explain the effect it had on me. But my dad then got multiple sclerosis, couldn't really walk or move or do much. I'm not saying that the woman should do the housework, but she didn't do any of the housework at all. My dad wasn't able to do any of the housework or the cooking, so it was me and or my brother doing the hoovering, the cleaning, the ironing, and whatever else at the age of like 10, 11, 12, all this kind of stuff. So it was just a horrible kind of upbringing, really. And I kind of left home at the age of like 14, 15, worked in a petrol station all night, at weekends, and a hardware shop just to afford to get my own rent and that kind of stuff.
Food, etc.
Yeah, and I was just like, I felt worthless. I was very shy, got called pikey a lot at school, often got beaten up and bullied and all this kind of stuff, had free dinners. Also, look, there's loads of words of adversity out there, but what I'm trying to say, my start in life wasn't particularly good for me in terms of my confidence, and I just felt rejected, disowned, different, and all this kind of stuff. So I managed to go to a grammar school, hated it there. In the last year, I didn't complete a full week. I always skived off at least one day. I used to forge my dad's notes and take my bike. I did a paper round as well, actually. And on 2 or 3 occasions, even at the age of 12 or 13, I used to drive to or ride to a railway station, walk with my bike to the end of the platform and wait for the high-speed train. And there was quite a few times where I was just so tempted just to jump in front of the train. So a very early age.
What age was this? 14,
We're
15?
talking 13, 14, 15.
Wow.
You know. I just didn't feel worthy of anyone or anything. And I was so shy when it came to in English literature at the grammar school. If ever there was a reading thing, I'd skive off, or I ran out of classrooms on 3 or 4 occasions. If I ever had to read a book or read anything in front of it, I just couldn't do it. I was just really messed up in that regard. So I then joined the S3 group, which, for those who don't know, the 1.4 billion pounds business.
Yeah, everyone should know S3 in recruitment.
Yeah, 3,000 or 4,000 consultants. I'll just take a sip of this.
Yeah,
anyway,
just for clarity as well, we obviously always bring on favourite beverage. We've got Guinness today.
Mate.
Cheers, Chris.
Good shout.
Yeah, good shout. I've never actually had Guinness out of a can, so it's interesting, but we poured it in a glass, which is good.
Yeah.
But, diving back into things, I think, just to say it how it is, it's a very shit start to the world. And to see you here now is a massive thing, I think, Chris. And diving more further into the journey then, I think you mentioned about skiving school and, the difficulties around that as well. Like, just dive more into that for me. So, school itself, you mentioned you went to grammar. Was that the place you were skiving, or was that beforehand?
No, that was the place I was skiving. I'm blessed to go there because the other school was rough as fuck, and because I had to walk to school, it was about half an hour. The secondary school was kind of on the route, so I had to go all the way around to avoid all the people that would try and beat me up and bully me because they could see I was an easy target. So, and that school, it was a very, very well respected school. A lot of the children were very wealthy, or very wealthy parents. I'd go around their house, and I remember a few occasions their parents looking at me up and down as if I was wearing shit clothes and stuff like that. I'd never invite people to my house because I was just too embarrassed. So I would always had this kind of inferiority complex. I would say
no sense of belong, sort of thing.
No sense of belonging. But I did go to after I went to a college and did a BTEC in business and finance. And then I joined S3 as I said, and I did a university course. I did a degree in university part-time as well. And when I walked into the S3 office, right, back then, this was like 1998, it was, I don't know if anyone's seen the film Boiler Room, but it was a hardcore business environment. A lot of them had Ferraris, shiny shoes, ties fucking wider than their bodies, and pinstripe suits, all standing up on their phones and selling their grandma for a fiver kind of thing. And ordinarily, you think of me in that environment, be like, no, that's not going to work. But I walked in there, mate, honestly, and it just felt like this is a bit of me. I just thought this was my vehicle to kind of get out of the situation I was in. Inherently, what my mum did to me, although it fucked me up relationships-wise, which we can talk about, it kind of gave me my drive, because I think in my soul I was thinking nobody can do any worse than that to me. So it kind of gave me no fear. So I walked in there, had 11 interviews, finally got the last.
Is that the whole process at S3?
Yeah, mate, it was just
11 interviews.
Yeah,
bloody
it was
hell.
mental, mate. And then in the last interview, I had a chat with the chairman, and he offered me the job, and it was great. And then this business has had 3,000 or 4,000 consultants in it across 60 offices in 20 countries. Massive business, as most people know. And I started off as a resource, so I was top of the league there. And then they opened up a Bristol office, and they said, "We want you to go to Bristol because we think you're good." Moved to Bristol with literally didn't even have enough to pay rent. I had to borrow money off my mate, who gave me a lift in his Volvo. I had a shitty fucking bed sitting on top of a chippy. So I came to Bristol with absolutely nothing. Within 18 months, I was Computer Futures' worldwide UK top biller, then became S3's worldwide top biller across the whole group, was billing 800 or 900 grand a year and absolutely knocked the fucking doors off. And I was worldwide top biller, and a lot of people say they were, I actually was. You know, I absolutely smashed it, and built teams and made them about 5 million quid in 15 million quid in 5 years.
15 mil.
Yeah.
5 years.
With my team.
Wow.
But also, 6 months after moving to Bristol, I met this Irish girl. We got pregnant within 6 months, and then had the baby. On the first day he was born, we broke up, and it was kind of then he was taken away to Ireland for 6 months. So all this, my career was going bonkers good. I was one of the fastest person to get to 30 contractors running, having all these accolades, and I was also fighting to get my son back as well. So that was a really kind of challenging time.
Yeah, it feels like as soon as something's getting good, that happens. So talk to me a bit about S3 then. So to me, that sounds like your first ever real safety net. Was there a specific individual? You mentioned obviously the team that you're working in. You know, would you maybe say that it was almost an escape from reality as well? Just that I can imagine the intense amount of focus you have to do. I mean, contract recruitment is difficult in itself, but
I think you're right there. I've never really thought about that, but yeah, absolutely. I was literally like insatiably laser focused. I walked in there and it felt like the business had this aura about it, and one of the guys there, John Pullen, who sadly passed away now, absolute legend.
John, rest in peace.
Yeah, he was a great lad, and he was my MD, and he always backed me. But I learned a lot from him, Nick Barker, loads of people. That business has literally generated thousands and thousands of business entrepreneurs like myself who've gone on to do great things. But yeah, I'd literally, you can cut me in half and I would bleed S3. It was just like I lived and breathed it, literally. And I was making like age of like 24, 25, making like massive money, you know, didn't know what to do with it really. And then I left there and I set up my own business in 2003, and in 9 years got that to just under 100 people, £25 million turnover, 14 industry awards, 3 Virgin Fast Track 100 awards in a row, which is pretty unprecedented. Wow. Three-star Best Company awards in a row. I was Southwest Entrepreneur of the Year. We absolutely knocked that out of the fucking park. And people say now it's one of the best, if not the best, recruitment businesses out there. I'll explain how I lost that business in a minute, but almost every other week now I'm getting ex-employees, you know, recontacting me and saying thank you after so long. It's just so heartwarming and what I'm getting now. But the journey was amazingly high, and then one day it all came crashing down.
So it's nice to hear that impact is still engraved in individuals. That obviously you was a big sort of play regarding that.
Yeah.
How long were you running that business for?
So we set it up in 2003. I was probably the guy that was driving the billings, and my co-founder was more the operational guy. The first couple of years, you know, £500,000, we did okay, and then we got to 5 or 6 people, and then we decided to move into a massive 60 or 70 person office. We took 5 people with us and said, which part of it is ours? And I said, well, all of it. We just had this massive belief. It was like literally like a football field. Yeah. And then we hired 1 or 2 people, one particular individual in particular who headed up our public sector team, and we just literally went from about 2 or 3 million up to 9 million really quickly. So in 9 years, we got it to that level. And then my business partner walked in. We had Bristol office, we had a Manchester office, we had a London office. I wanted to do a Paris office and an Australian office. I wanted to literally
big dreams,
kick on. He just had his 3rd child. He walked in one day and said, look, I've had enough. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go. I want to go quickly. And I was like, okay, but I haven't got 12.5 million quid in my pocket, my half of the business to buy you out. We're going to have to do like a deal. So we had to go to market. We got it all fit for purpose. We did what they call is an information memorandum. We didn't even go to market. It was getting offers right, left and centre. I got a really strong offer that I accepted. They then pulled out. But then I did do a deal with a private equity firm. Pete left, my business partner left. The first year was really good. I was lauded as one of their best CEOs in their portfolio. The objective was that I would stay on for 3 to 5 years and get it from 25 million to 100 million, from 100 people to 300, and go crazy with it. But then the second year, it started to go very wrong. I can't say too much, but I'm happy to say as much because I've signed an NDA.
Of course,
Let's just say that the culture wasn't anywhere near what it was. They were looking at almost like counting the coffee granules. They were looking at the bottom line. I was stuck in my office looking at spreadsheets all day. They infiltrated my board. I got a call on honeymoon saying I need to go into their office, and I was forced out of the business in a very, very, very difficult
Toxic,
manner. I had to fight it. I had to take them to court. It cost me hundreds and thousands of pounds. And essentially, I got a deal that was worth nowhere near what it should have been worth. And so I was basically gone from a very, very successful, exposed CEO one day to literally having nothing. In the space of like 18 months, I lost my business. I lost access to my children again. Got divorced, lost 7 houses, and had 3 suicide attempts. I was literally at rock bottom.
How long ago was this?
It was 2014, mate. 10 years ago or so.
It seems like a long time ago, but it's not, especially when the impact it has on you as an individual. I bet that feels like yesterday.
Yeah, people ask me, you know, are you over it? And I don't think you ever really get over that kind of stuff. What I've used it to harness it. So I came back onto LinkedIn and kind of told my story and used that as my story. And actually, the clients that I've gotten, it's almost a thing that's happened to me that I know how not to do things and what to look out for. So it was fucking difficult at the time, I should say, but I've learned so much from that experience. I look back to what I was like as a CEO, and
what were you like?
I thought I was King Kong, mate. Do you know what I mean? I was spending money
like King Kong, yeah.
Spending money like water. I was getting into relationships I shouldn't get into. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was a bit of a Jack the Lad, but I think that type of personality was required in terms of I was driving it and nothing was impossible. 5 million, 10 million, 50 million. Let's do office and let's spend the money. But then I thought I was a bit untouchable. I thought I was unstoppable, and ultimately, I probably got a bit too big for my boots in a way as well. But I wouldn't change any part of that because it attracted the right culture and it drove it forward. So I'm a different man now to what I was then. I like to think I'm more measured, but I am. You know, I lost those millions of pounds, and then I started to resent people with money. But now money is really important to me, but it's not my be all and end all, and that's why I've set up my Purpose Leadership podcast. That's why I'm now an NED I've helped over 50 recruitment businesses scale, because ordinarily what I found is you can have the best processes in the world, but if you're not right mentally as a leader. So I've tapped into my adversity and my losses, and I can see the fear in other CEOs' eyes. I can see where the mistakes that I was making. I look back and go, that was me. So I can identify their issues, I think, quicker than most. And so in a paradoxical way, losing that business, it probably helped me find a better version of myself, and God knows where I'd be if that didn't happen to me. I might be dead, I might be in prison, I might still be running it. I doubt it, but I don't know. But
do you remember the moment that obviously, you know, the business slipped out your fingers? Like, what was your immediate go-to then? Was it drink? Was it drugs? Was it gym?
It wasn't gym, mate.
I mean, that's what I was about to say, because I would be the same, if I'm honest. I think you coming from, again, just going back to your childhood and how that was, and then having such a success at S3, and then, you know, I can tell through what you're saying with the passion and the enthusiasm, you know, you're still getting ex-employees saying thank you. You obviously made a solid impact. You know, I think that you were just shooting for the stars, mate, and I truly believe that you probably had no guidance as well in terms of what's telling you, know, what's too far.
I didn't really listen to other people, but I would change that now. But in a way, that blind optimism got me where I was. It helped me drove forward. But what I did, I turned to, I became I admit it, a gambling addict. I remember one time I was driving my Range Rover and I had my iPad on my lap whilst driving. I was betting on the roulettes whilst I was driving, and you know, for thousands of pounds, betting on Tottenham Football Club, my team. They beat Newcastle 4-1. If they lost, I would have lost 17 grand. If they won, I would have won 11 grand. It was just like stuff like that where I just felt so unjustifiably, unjust with what happened. I thought I need to get my money back, and I just lost it. in that, and did some drugs, drinking a little bit. I wouldn't say I was any worse than most. But it wasn't, what I was doing wasn't particularly good. I had no purpose, and it took 3 years to even get that deal closed in the end and get something out of it. So I wasn't eating right, I wasn't acting right, I wasn't looking after myself, I was smoking 25 cigarettes a day. But I defy anyone not to do something like that in that situation. So I think I did all that kind of stuff, but I don't think I did anything necessarily horrendous to other people. It was more to myself.
Self-inflicted.
Yeah.
You mentioned briefly about LinkedIn, and I think that was the main thing which I noticed. And a lot of these questions are actually from your LinkedIn.
Okay.
I appreciate how open and honest you are with the public, and I think that's probably a platform which is, especially now, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume at S3 back in the 90s, LinkedIn wasn't the main source of...
No,
it wasn't really a thing, right?
Not at all, mate, no.
Now it's a real platform for people like yourself to sort of voice their journeys, and I think I appreciate it a lot. People like myself, I'm sure there's many people that, it's quite touching the story. But back to what I was saying, so you mentioned Tottenham Hotspur, right? Yeah. So I seen on LinkedIn that there was a picture of you when you owned the business and a picture of you 10 years after.
Yeah.
And you look like two different people.
That post went mad. It had 20 million views and all sorts. Yeah.
It had a lot. So it's good to hear as well firsthand about you actually as that person, because you can see the difference. Now, if it was just that picture alone, you wouldn't think any different.
God, I look back at that picture or pictures like that, and I think, I looked about 12 because I didn't have my beard, and I just like I don't almost like defies logic how I actually got and did what I did. And I just think it's a bizarre thing, right? Like, you've got to have a lot of balls and confidence to build a business. That just doesn't happen easily.
Yeah.
So on one hand, I've got this. I mean, I was hiring and coaching £1 million billers and firing them and just taking on the world. But then I used to take the suit off and become this kind of like very maybe naive but very shy kind of like disconnected person, I think. So I think I've grown up a hell of a lot, probably more in the last 4 years than I have. I'm 46 now. The last sort of 4 or 5 years than I did in the previous 40, where when I left the family home, got divorced, and I was forced to kind of look at myself and work on myself and do loads of personal development, have loads of therapy and counselling and that kind of stuff. So
just going back to that, so you mentioned that when you'd get home from being this Superman in your business, right? You'd take your suit off and you'd be a different person. And back to what I was saying previously, and I could see that obviously it was almost a moment that you've obviously not heard. And I think it goes back to, again, just that safety net and almost that masking of the actual problem, which is, absolutely. In the epicenter of you as an individual, that, it is always going to be there. I'm sure you've found ways that, you can implement strategies, etc. We'll dive into that later, but just talk to me about that. So when you get home, take your suit off, like, who was that person? Like, did you even feel like you were almost, because I feel it sometimes, Chris, I feel like I'm living 2 different lives. Like, I used to work at a school, and then I was a bit of a troublemaker outside of it, and now I'm in recruitment, and because of my dad and what he got up to, and it was similar to yourself with gambling, and he lost his business as well, was nowhere near as big as yourself. But talk to me about that person that you took your suit when you took your suit off.
Well, I think when I put it on, all my kind of fears and worries and the persona of me being this vulnerable, rejected, abandoned child had literally, they would go. It was like this suit of armor. Yeah, almost like I stepped into a different character almost. When I took it off, it just felt like I was laid bare and vulnerable and kind of very shy. I would go red really easily, and all I would do is, if anyone ever ask me any questions. I would just talk about what I did. I would talk about my business. I had nothing else.
No substance to anything else. Yeah.
Nothing, no.
I find that with a lot of recruiters though. Like, I mean, I've been in recruitment for almost 2 years, and I find that when I meet my friends, that's all I can talk
No disrespect
about.
recruiters, but
yeah, no disrespect, but we are quite egotistical. So I can imagine, you know, with the portfolio you had at the time, the ego you had at the time. Yeah, I don't blame you.
And so that fall from grace is probably in that regard, is one of the best things out there. I'm not going to sort of blow my own trumpet and say I'm the most purpose-driven person out there, but I think I almost was forced to kind of go, hang on a second, yeah, you've done bloody well, and it is really good. What I've achieved was absolutely amazing. The watches, the houses, the cars, the awards, the offices, the money, the status, all that kind of stuff. But actually, my biggest wealth now is my knowledge, my experience, and actually, you know, I'm a mental health first aider, I've talked about it, and helping people and actually understanding my feelings and the impact I have on people's lives. And people might think that's a load of bollock, but to me, don't get me wrong, I still love money, but I wanna love myself first. And I still don't think I'm fully there yet. Actually, it's a journey, mate. The moment you think you're there, you know you're not, kind of thing.
Agreed. I think that the one thing I will say, Chris, is just accepting that is a big thing. Just accepting the fact that it is a journey is a massive thing. Talk to me a bit about the Tottenham thing. I know we discussed it a little bit earlier. So you mentioned that the business was like a match day sponsor, wasn't it? What was that like as a moment?
That was that was amazing, mate.
And that's your team.
The geezer phoned me up and said, "We've seen you. Do you want to sponsor it?" And we get the money, and it's like, you know, 5-figure sum, whatever. So I did that. I took my son with me and my girlfriend at the time. We got access to the changing rooms, saw Harry Redknapp, Adebayor, Bale, all those people.
Wow.
My 8 or 9-year-old at the time was like, literally, what the fuck is this? It was just like amazing. And then they announced it on the tannoy, and on Match of the Day we saw it on the billboard. It was just, I felt, and this, oh mate, it just felt like, yeah, I've kind of arrived here, you know. And I've had lunch at Richard Branson's house 3 times in a row, all that kind of stuff.
With him?
Yeah.
Just you and him?
Not just me and him.
I'd say dinner date, candlelit dinner.
It's not that quite at that stage. You know, it's my best mate actually. But yeah, so stuff like that. But almost like, I don't think I allowed it to go to my head, or I don't think I did at the time. I took it in my stride, but I don't know, mate. I was 26, 27, 28. I think I would find it hard to believe that anybody wouldn't get a little bit kind of like arrogant about that.
Yeah, 100%.
I was a multi-millionaire, mate, as well. Do you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, but again, right. So, but when I spoke to you on that Teams call, like I said before, the story of my old man is very similar to yours.
Yeah.
Had all this money and lost it like that.
Right.
You know, we won't dive into how, but very similar to got pushed out of business in a way that wasn't very nice. Developed, well, he always had a drug problem and a gambling problem, but he was just so egotistical, and he was just so, I think, I remember like when he lost that money again, it was when you mentioned before, he was like almost like he deserved it back, was doing everything he can to get that back. I used to say to him, like, Dad, like, just go and like work in Sainsbury's, like just swallow your pride, do anything for, you know, just to get by. No, wouldn't have it. I remember, like, you know, my mum was watching, sorry, but, you know, my dad used to take me in casinos when I was 16, telling my mum we're at SeaWorld and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, he was living this, in a way, he didn't have the money that obviously you had at the time, but he pretended that he did.
Yeah, right, okay.
You know, unfortunately, he's not here now to tell the story, which I wish he was.
That's a shame. Sorry to hear that, mate.
It's okay, mate, but, you know, it's like I said, suicide's a big thing, and I think that, you know, you mentioned you had 3 attempted suicide.
Sorry to interrupt you. I know you're asking me the questions.
Yeah.
Was your dad died of?
Well, yeah. So technically, it was. So
Right.
so he basically had he was, what's the word now? He had liver cirrhosis due to his alcohol intake. There was a point in his life where there was more alcohol in his system than blood or water or whatever it was.
Okay.
And I think it was an overdose at the end of it, and that was in 2017.
I'm really sorry to hear that, mate.
It's okay, mate, but again, that's what I mean. It resonates with me because, like, he was just, in my opinion, a superhero. When I used to go out shopping with my mum at a young age, I used to walk around Argos and go, I want this, I want that, as you as a kid. And she gritted her teeth angrily at me once and was like, your dad earns more money in a single month than I do in a year.
Yeah.
You know, and I never seen that until then. I started hanging around with my dad a bit more.
Right.
You know, he won a legal cause to see me. Like, my mum and dad were never together when I was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I very much have the charisma as him, but I also have my mum's empathy.
Right.
And I think that's one thing my dad didn't have. You know, there's loads of people, right? Alicia Holmes, who was on the podcast, who used to manage him.
Yeah.
Alex G, who I met in Manchester not long ago, reached out. He used to work with my dad.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everyone speaks so highly of my dad, but always would say how troubled he was. But then actually, you know, struggled to stay mad at him because of how charismatic he was. And he could worm his way out of any hole. But and you know, I don't want to speak bad about him because I love him to pieces. But you know, that he was always up to dodgy stuff. There was, you know, fraud going on. There was loads of stuff going on with the business, and, you know, multiple, you know, partners and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that empathy piece is important though, mate, because like I think I didn't have it anywhere near as much as what I got now, and the similarity there is like, it sounds like your dad was literally so focused on the next pound, so focused on the business, and that he almost couldn't see or he didn't really know what else was important in life, right? And for me, I think I almost like, because I wasn't loved, nurtured, shown how. My mum walked out on me, my stepmom, so I had no concept of what love was or is, or how to love somebody, or how to feel love from somebody. So when you haven't got that, when you've got a void, you go to replace it. This is why you get addicted to stuff. So my addiction at that time was business. And it sounds like maybe similar to Dad, I don't know, but kind of like, and I was trying to replace the missed love or the lost love with status and success and accolades and validation. And the moment I lost that, I was forced to look at the real stuff, the empathy. And then I believe I started to become a lot more empathetic. But it took massive loss, massive trauma for me to go understand actually. And now I look at myself and I think, well, I know I'm actually deep down, I'm a really empathetic person. But if you met me 15 years ago, you'd think, no, mate.
And that's the
no
thing.
chance.
So how old are you, Chris?
46 now, mate.
So one thing, if I look as good as you at 46, I'll be buzzing. Second thing is, my dad was 45 when he died, so a year younger than you.
Wow.
And I don't know if he had attempts beforehand or not, but one thing that I do recall is similar to what you were saying, is a traumatic upbringing.
Yeah, right.
You know, he was fiddled as a child,
No way.
not by parents. You know, my nana and granddad loved him to pieces, but they moved to Devon at a young age. And, you know, other side of the country, right?
Yeah.
From Manchester to Devon, it's an 8-hour drive. You know, it's not exactly around the corner.
No way.
Skied school, got into sales, fell in love with the environment, started making serious money, had a Porsche, had a Jaguar at the same time,
Wow.
BMW as well, had a flat in Spinningfields, which is obviously a nice area in Manchester. You know, he was the man in my eyes, right? But, you know, I don't realise until I speak to people like yourself that there tends to be a bit of a pattern in terms of traumatic upbringings. You know, there's other things that I'm just not, you know, open to discuss on here, but there's a lot of patterns that I see across people that almost don't know, like that, don't have that empathy piece that you actually need.
But they tend to be quite high achievers, though.
Exactly. Agreed.
You know what I mean? And that's what happened to me. But I feel that what I'm conscious of, though, because I've done a few of these podcasts, and by the way, I think you're a great host, and I can't believe you're half my age. I wish I had your capability when I was 23. But anyway, I've done a lot of these podcasts, and I love it. And the questions you're asking me is really, really good. But sometimes I feel, I'm going off on tangent now, sometimes I feel like my story is powerful and it's compelling and it's beautiful and it's the rags to riches again. But I'll be honest with you now, sometimes I feel like I become my story so much. I don't just want to be the guy that was known for building his business, losing his business, starting again. It's like kind of what's next. What I'm trying to say is that when I tell my story, I do it because it's actually therapeutic for me. I do it because I think it helps other people as well. But someone said to me a couple of weeks ago, I've listened to your story and all you ever do is talk about your losses and all. Why don't you talk about you being what a great father you are and the accolades? So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes I have the self-doubt, like most people have, but I just forget. Irrespective, I lost the business. I was a massive player. I was a bit of a dickhead. All the stuff happened to me has happened for me, but I'm also a good guy as well. And I think that when I lost the business, the majority of the business people that I work with kind of not turned on me, but disowned me, because they believed a certain thing that happened. And then when it all came out, what actually happened, as I said to you earlier, I'm getting regular texts and calls and messages saying how proud and thankful they are of me. So for me, that means a lot to me. And because I've had the abandonment child, the abuse, losing the business, losing my kids, losing all the money, it's almost made me conditioned not to go, hang on a second, mate. That's phenomenal. What I've done, not many people have done. So what I'm trying to say is I think it's really important that we pat ourselves on the back sometimes. That's not an arrogant thing. And I was a host this morning, and I say to my clients, like, there's too many people on LinkedIn or wherever that are scared to like put their own references out because they feel, oh, I'm blowing my own trumpet. No, it's fine to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I think in this day and age, sometimes we get shot down for just singing our own praises, and I think it's fine to pat yourself on the back sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And especially someone like yourself, like you mentioned there, you know, I'm not saying that you're sick of telling the story, but it almost becomes your identity.
Yeah.
And, you know, trust me, there's many questions, if just one scroll and we'll go on to your successes, which you've already uncovered, by the way. You know, I know that there's obviously a lot of traumatic things and a lot of losses, but what you did
I'm happy to go into those as well, but I'm just saying.
And I think everything that you've done at S3, even you just being here now, is a success.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned about being a father to your kids. Did you think that, you know, the lack of parenthood you had as a child has gave you an unwavering focus to?
Yeah, that's a really good observation and a good question. Because I wouldn't wish what happened to me on any of my children. I think my first child, who's now 22, is your age.
Wow.
Fucking hell, that makes me feel old. I've just realised that. Because I was 24 when I had him, you know, I wasn't as good a parent then as I am now. So I feel a little bit a sense of, you know, I wish I could have been a better parent than then because I was too young, a little bit too young. But I got two other beautiful boys, Phoenix and Chester, are 6 and 9, and I see them every other weekend, every Wednesday. And if you look at my Instagram, my Facebook, and you know, it's not just about that, but you can just tell that when I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids, and I do the bedtime stories, I do all the Christmas stuff. I'm a father, I'm present as much as I can be with my businesses and that kind of stuff. Because I know what not being around, what being there but not being there is like. You can be in the room with your kid, but you can not be in the room with your kid. So yeah, it means a lot to me to be the right role model for them. But probably if you ask me what my darkest moment was, it probably wasn't losing the business, or that was fucking difficult. I remember being in a lock-in in Windsor one night. I hadn't seen my first child for 6 months. After, you know, I just felt the most hollow. So being denied access from your kids is not great. But then I think to myself, hang on a second, it's not about the parents. If I feel like that, what do the kids feel like? Yeah. So yeah, in answer to your question, it's in a funny sort of way, it's made me a better parent. Yeah. Because I wouldn't want to do that to my own children.
I also think there's no actual correct way to be a dad, right? Or a mother in that sense. You know, it's not that young to be a father at the age of 24, like you mentioned, but no one can be prepared for that. No. Obviously, you know, I think, to put it, you know, bluntly, this podcast is all about honesty, right? I don't think that most babies are even planned nowadays as well. So, you know, things just come and you make shit work. And
that's so true,
you know, it's great to hear that you've got access to them, you are seeing them, you're proud to share them on your Instagram that's private. You can probably, you know, if I have a snoop now, I can probably see how pure it is. Yeah. And, you know, I can tell how happy you are to be able to be present with them in that moment, because I think that space with your loved ones is so important, especially, you know, through the experience you've had.
Yeah, and I think that it's not easy being a single parent. I have them pick them up on Friday afternoon, take them back on Monday, and then every Wednesday and half the holidays. But I would wonder what I would be like without them. I think children can be challenging. They can be demanding, but also they can be great teachers actually, and they can actually, in a way, they can parent you. What I mean by that, they kind of like, you're forced into being a role model almost. You're forced into actually teaching them right from wrong, teaching them certain values, and for me, it's you can learn so much from their purity. I do, and their innocence, and I've gone to different places with. I do like camping and glamping and all these things that we do. It's just I the age they're at now, I love the company, mate. They're like little brothers to me, and we have good fun, and it kind of keeps me going, really.
So that was my next question, the main thing that keeps you going.
Yeah.
Well, like, why is Chris here today? And I think you've answered that, right? Like,
yeah, I think it is. I think it is my kids. I think they play a huge part. I wouldn't say I've got unresolved business in terms of what happened, but I believe that everyone's got gifts, and I think that I want to impart my knowledge, my wisdom and experience on as many people as possible, but leave an impact. People talk about legacy and talk about it being a load of bollocks, because when you go, you're forgotten after a few months anyway. And I'm like, well, what's the point of living then? My objective is to try and be the best person I can, not just for my kids, but for those around you, meeting you, the audience, and just try and be kind and be a nice person. But as you say, honesty, I think, is really important. And I used to get ribbed on LinkedIn quite a lot when I first been quite vulnerable, and but I'm not vulnerable for sympathy. I'm not open for sympathy. This is just me, mate. This is just who I am. Yeah. And if people don't like it, they don't fucking like it. I don't care.
Fuck off, literally. You got to embrace it, mate. And I think you've got to be true to yourself. Going on to your successes, then, mate. I'm keen to obviously wind back the clock even more. Go into what we were discussing previously about S3. Again, it was that safety net. You had that focus. Can tell obviously by the numbers that it was exceptional. Like what? How was that then? Like in terms of your processes, you're obviously doing contract. You had 30 runners out, which is the quickest to do so. Yeah. Talk to me about that.
I got to 49 runners in the end. I was just, mate. I would just sense an opportunity, but I was given the old AS400 mainframe market, which is, people who know the industry 20 years ago, it's an old school legacy system. I was given the Southwest. There was only 43 clients I could place into, and I placed in 42 of them. I just did less is more, inch wide, mile deep. I was just, every time I spoke to a candidate, I thought, this is an opportunity to either place him or her, get leads from them, CV strip, ask them where they're interviewing. It was really weird on the phone, because it was all on the phone back then, as you say. There was no LinkedIn, didn't even have fucking email, mate. It was all on the phone, and for some reason, on the phone, I just became this absolutely balls out fucking salesperson. I remember when I used to walk into client meetings, they used to think, they looked at me and think, I cannot believe this is Chris O'Connell. Because on the phone, they said I sounded like this 35-year-old, really experienced, hardcore, proper, polished salesperson.
Yeah.
Look at me. It was like their fucking son walked in the door. It was just, on the phone, I had no fear, and I could sense it within their first word. I just had this knack around changing my tone, knowing what to say, didn't take no for an answer, closed on trial starts, closing interviews, making up candidates that didn't even exist to get the interview slot, and then finding the candidate, and then all that. I just literally, I had other candidates that would, from other agencies, that accepted another job and turned them around. I just had this, I just loved it, mate.
It sounds like a gift, mate, right? Because not everyone can do that, and like spot gaps and people say cutting corners is a negative thing, but I think in recruitment, process-wise, there has to be urgency behind things. Obviously, depending on what market you do, but when we're talking about like old school contracts.
Yeah, that's right. I think you've hit it now on the head. I had the urgency, but I also had the process as well. I'd make sure I'd have a list of people to mail shot my candidates out to. But for me, it was always like always be closing. I did quite a lot of deals on one phone call, and I think the advent of LinkedIn and where we are now in this day and age, I think I love marketing, but I think the market has changed a little bit. I think we have lost a little bit of salespersonship, and I think BD's having a bit of a renaissance now, isn't it? Because of the way the market is, agencies are now forced to go back into BD, But the problem they've got is the consultants don't know how to do it, and they think it's difficult. I think it's hard because they've been used to getting the roles. And I love the whole 360 thing. When it started to go 270 and 180, I was thinking,
what is
God,
270 like?
how many people do you want to? Do you need? Do you know what I mean? So but there's a lot to be said with the automation, the tools, and some of the tech is really, really good. But I just think that you can't beat that. That's sales.
Well, that's it. I see it a lot. Obviously, being a rep direct, you're in the epicenter, aren't you, of the recruitment industry?
Right. Yeah. Of course.
And you speak to thousands of individuals weekly, really. Consultants and clients as well. And one thing I always do is really just try and dissect like what their company culture is like in regards to a commercial aspect. What are the consultants doing on a day to day? And when they start saying, they're all 180 and 270, I'm always a bit like, really?
So basically, you just speak to candidates all day, it's like
it works for some models.
It needs to be careful with it because you're right. I mean, there is a market where there's a certain type of person for the type of thing, but for me, I think that even if you are a delivery person, I teach this to some of my clients. Why can't you get that delivery person to do BD in a different form where they are asking for leads from candidates, they are CV stripping, they are giving.
Great idea.
Why? It's almost like I think it's a little bit of a cop-out actually. Well, no, I can't do that because actually you speak to all the candidates. There's so much BD opportunity in the CV and a phone call to a candidate, isn't there?
But this is the thing, right? So I'm building a market now as we speak. I've been doing it for 3 months and doing clean tech, which obviously involves renewables, EV, sustainability, ESG, etc. And I was a bit of a generalist. I was doing everything and anything, right? Yeah. All contingent, all permanent, rec to rec, and doing great numbers. And the way that in my space anyway, the way things were moving, mate, I was doing a lot of grad stuff and no one was paying for grads anymore. Yeah. So I think like what I was getting into was the one thing I've learned. I spoke with an individual about how to build a market. I know there's loads of podcasts out there, and it's funny because obviously I'm a host on a podcast, but I've actually not properly listened to a full one of my own or anyone else's. Right. The clips are what I gain value from. And I actually spoke to a client. Funny enough, I actually in-mailed him. Way too senior for the job role I was in-mailing for. And instead of saying fuck off, he's just sort of said, here's some advice. And I got him on the phone anyway. And the one thing he said to me that really struck is that your candidates are the eyes and ears in the market. Of course. And if you're saying that delivery 180 individuals are speaking to the eyes and ears in the market, surely that's where the value is. They know what's hot, where's not, where they're interviewing.
Well, it's about how you position yourself. So my advice to a resource or delivery person is that this is how I would approach the mindset of it. You don't just approach the mindset of I'm going to try and place that role with that candidate. It's how you position yourself as a resource or delivery person. Yeah. So it'd be like Mr. Candidate or Mrs. Candidate. Hi, I'm Chris from Joe Bloggs Recruitment Limited. I've got your CV in front of me. I know for a fact that there's going to be at least a dozen of my clients that would be potentially interested in interviewing you. Name drop some clients that you want to work with, not work with. So you're building a picture in the candidate's mind of what you're doing. Is there any clients that you want us to approach on your behalf? Any clients you don't want us to approach on your behalf? So what I'm going to be doing over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks is do my utmost to try and get you in front of and this is some of the processes that we're doing, all this kind of stuff. So talk to me about you worked at Joe Bloggs Limited 2 years ago. Was it Mark Tully you worked for there? No, it was Gary Smith. What was it like there? Oh, okay. Who are you interviewing with? And what I tend to do with our clients or candidates, Mr. Client and Mr. or Mrs. Candidate, is we work on an exclusive basis. So if you are interviewing anywhere, let me know. Yeah. Because what that will do is leverage my position with you. It's that kind of stuff.
That's it.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I say the same. I mean, as a rep truck again, as a business, our client base is huge. Yeah. And I say something similar to yourself, just along the lines of, look, I'm sure as you're aware, like I've got a very large client base. The chances are the places you're interviewing at are already a client of mine. Don't want to get them wires crossed. You're going to look silly. I'm going to look silly. Just let me know who you're interviewing at. And all the time, 100% of the time, they'll go, boom, boom, boom. And you go, never worked with them before. Let's BD them. Yeah. There's so many different ways to lead strip. And I think that, like you mentioned, with the market, the way it's changing now, that I think a lot of people are underskilled in BD. A lot of people are actually scared to make a cold call. Candidate or client, really.
Yeah, but it's about I've done training courses on this. It's about mindset as well, and I think they put the client on a pedestal. Yeah. But I don't see it as candidate and client. I see it as customer. I see them as both exactly the same. In order for a vacancy to be delivered, is the consultant, the client, and the candidate. But why would you treat a client any differently to a candidate? that's I think that's the issue that we've got, and it's just I know the client pays your bills, but a client wants you to be consultative. He wants you to kick back and push and educate him. And sometimes I think we, for want of a better word, pussyfoot. It's not a great word to use, but we're subservient to clients because fear that they might actually not like that.
Yeah,
but it's just having that same mindset. But I think we get scared to challenge our clients.
I agree. I've done it quite recently actually. Had final stage. Obviously the candidate wanted, quite a, well, in my opinion, it was a healthy salary. So obviously, instead of saying, the client was pushing back on, not willing to, reasons why that salary is, out of their remit, and, me giving relevant insights to the value they can add, and literally walking them through. Like I was sort of envisioning having a piece of paper on the phone and having a checklist and going,
exactly, yeah.
As a culture perspective, is he perfect? Yes. On a profile perspective, like, does he do your market, geographical location, tick. And I was making him do all these ticks, and I go, the one thing you're saying is it's 5k more than, what you're willing to pay. It still seems within your budget.
That's it.
Based on what you said. You've got
brilliant.
to push back, right?
But it's also about control.
Yeah.
Right? So we can talk about retained, talk about exclusive, but as a bare minimum, I think if you're taking on a new brief or a new role from a client, what you should be saying is, right, thanks, Mrs. Client. We've spent an hour on the phone talking about your JD, and we've got a really good understanding of exactly what you need. What I'm going to do now as part of my service level agreement or standard agreement is send you an email with the JD on it. Feel free to make any tweaks or amendments. The email is going to say when you're going to first interview, when you're going to second interview, when you're going to offer, when you're going to pay. If you email me that back, we'll start working on it straight away for you. Then shut up. If the client says no, don't, you start to question it.
Yeah.
I think where recruiters go wrong is they spend too much time on roles they think are amazing with big clients, but there's no control. They're against 16 other agencies, and it's just like, actually, what constitutes a good client? So that I do a lot of work with that. Then the BD side of things, you don't necessarily have to BD with new clients. You can BD with existing clients and mushroom out and do other stuff. Then control at the end. I think we don't control enough at the start, and then we try to be too controlling at the end of the process. So when it comes to offer stage, I always try and say, don't try and control the offer. Don't get the offer from the candidate, from the client to you. Have a good understanding of what the client's going to offer, but get the client and the candidate speaking as much as possible at that stage, at the offer stage, and straight after the offer stage, so there's less chance of that dropping out, because the candidate is less likely to drop out if he's directly with the client. I think sometimes.
Point in contact.
It's all that kind of little things, and that's why recruitment is so beautiful, because people outside of it think it's just matching your CV to a JD,
literally.
but there's so many things, as we know.
There's so many elements. I like what you said there as well. Like, that's something that I've learned, that there is such thing as good business and bad business.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where now, I'm building out a market. As soon as you sort of, again, not to blow me on trumpet, but we discussed that that's okay at times, so I will, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Like, I've built a pretty decent, branding on LinkedIn. I've got amazing people like you on the podcast, and as soon as I obviously, put out there that this is what I'm specialising in, you get business that starts to approach you and going, I'm looking for X, Y, Z. And, we literally just discussed then about these businesses with these high amount of headcount with, numerous amount of internal recruiters basically doing my job, and how many other agencies working with them.
Yeah.
I go, no, because, the chances are in an ideal world, say it how it is, that's probably a business that I actually want to poach from. You know what I mean? And actually understanding what a good business and what a bad business looks like is a thing. How I look at it, Chris, is three things. One, do they want to spend? Okay. Like, how actual horny are they to spend? Right. Two, do they have a track record of spending in terms of not with ourselves, but with other agencies, whoever it may be, like, let's look at the percentage of growth they've had in the past 6 months. And then finally, what's the brief like? If that brief is easy,
mate,
that's a good business.
Totally. Another, I think that's really, really important. Also the brief can be amazing, but they haven't got any of the other two, then you question why you work on it. But this whole retained piece, people get really scared about retained, but you can do a different retain. So that example I said about the SLA with the emails, why don't you say that, and we ask all our clients on this basis that we don't have an archetypal retained model of a third, but the fee is 25%, and we ask for 10% of that fee up front, so 2.5%. So we ask for like $2,000 up front. You can try that as a retained model as well. It's about getting the client on hook. They can pay a nominal retainer up front. So for me, I'd sooner have my consultants working on 3 or 4 jobs like you and I have just discussed, as opposed to what they tend to do. They have 15 jobs on. It's just enough for them, not even real, and it's just about taking away that delusions of grandeur. But I think that going back to the LinkedIn thing as well, I think the whole personal branding thing is now quite an important thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it does win customers, and it does enhance your network. And it frustrates me that there's a lot of agencies out there that handcuff their people, or don't believe in it. What do you think?
No, I agree. So you know, the last
Sorry,
person I had on this podcast with Hisham,
right, cool,
you know, who does the Recruitment Mentors podcast, which is obviously pretty big, and his branding on LinkedIn is exceptional. And he said something that was quite interesting. And most people look at LinkedIn just for job adverts. And I think there's so much more to it now. Like,
absolutely.
you know, sometimes there is like an element of like, is this getting too much like Twitter? Like, I've never had Twitter before. So like, don't get me wrong, you could go through my LinkedIn and you know, there's pictures of bananas and weird shit like that, but they're the ones who get the most likes.
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre, and the algorithm's weird, but I love it, mate. And I think, you know, I think to showcase your personality on that platform
100%,
is the way forward.
I wouldn't be sitting here now talking to you if I didn't do what I did. I wouldn't have my NED practice. I wouldn't have had anywhere near the opportunities that I built, the friendships that I built. You know, I was at the Tiara Awards last night. I'm now a judge. You know, I'm renowned in.
How was that? Talk to me.
Amazing, actually.
So what actually was the awards?
Well, it's the Tiara Awards. They're one of the most recognised recruitment awards out there. It's talking about the best, fastest growing businesses under 50 million, the best leadership teams out there. It's all voted for, and it's like the process, mate. We had me and the other 25 odd judges.
So you were a judge. How would that feel?
Yeah, I thought that was one of my biggest achievements, actually. And I was also invited to a chairperson's dinner a couple of months ago.
House, or?
No, somewhere else's house. So kind of like, I think these kind of things now, they almost mean more to me than the business, because I feel like, so I'm voted as one of the top advisors in the entire recruitment industry. And I was around this table and talking about loads of stuff, and I just felt, and it kind of like, that was a bit of a pinch me moment, because I feel that to do what I've done is great. This is me now talking good about myself.
Yeah.
You know, 25 million quid, all that kind of stuff. But to then elevate that into then advising other recruitment agencies how to build and scale their businesses, and then get recognised for that, it's like, I mean, that's, for me, that's just shows that I've had a lot of shit that's happened to me, and I'm quite a resilient person, and I'm proud of that. And I'm nowhere near as rich financially as what I was, but I'm working my way back up there. But I look sometimes, and I look at other people who, you know, they've got big businesses, and I think, oh, that could be me. And I think, no. I don't want to. I could set up a recruitment business tomorrow, but I don't want to do that. You know, and there's people that have got bigger. It's just me. I've got a brilliant VA. I've got some other suppliers that do stuff for me. I've only got like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like 500 people again, but I don't even know what I want to be, actually. I just want to continue to grow and to continue to evolve. And it's not necessarily about. I've got 72,000 followers on LinkedIn, but my engagement is fucking terrible. But the quality isn't. The number of likes and comments is poor, but I'm getting leads, and that's the most important thing. I look at LinkedIn now. Sorry to interrupt you. 95% of it is a selfie, and I look at it and think, yeah, you got 400 likes, but you're having a conversation about the colour of your fucking trousers, mate. I'm having a conversation about my next gig.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's me. No, it's not me, but you are right. Quality, I think, if you can find a happy medium in terms of a balance on that.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I'll post, you know, I mentioned about, like, I don't want people thinking I'm just posting bananas. Like, it was a picture of a big banana, a small banana, and the meme was you versus the candidate they told you not to worry about, and like just little silly things like that. It's all relevant to recruitment, and again, we go back to me being in the epicenter of a rec to rec specialist. That quality piece is my number one tool.
To interrupt you in that, you will hopefully agree with this. The R2R rec to rec space has got maybe even more of a worse reputation than recruitment in terms of like
100%
fly by night. You get a CV, you whack out to 15 other agencies, and you hope for the best. So how have you? I'll be really interested. How have you broken through that sort of stigma almost?
So again, just like, you know, R2R, rec to rec, like, you know, what words are in there? Just recruitment. You know, and everyone forgets about the latter piece of our title, which is the consultant part. And one thing that I learned very early on, obviously I was a teacher for 4 years, like we mentioned before, and that journey piece of having a form from year 7 to, to year 10, and then becoming head of year, and, really being a part of the students' journey and progression, I just transferred it over to recruitment and looked at businesses as a partnership model. Like, I've never spec'd out one candidate to 15 businesses.
Right.
I can say that proudly, hand on heart, 5 at most. The reason why is because right now as well, it is a candidate-driven market. Luckily for me, Hire Group are the biggest rec check in the UK in terms of headcount. Our client base is all there. All the information's on a system. All you've got to do is spend an extra 10, 15 minutes researching, dissecting the information off, whatever you need to do, and then just filling and just doing it that way. And I think, back to what you were saying, in terms of breaking through that stigma, I don't think I ever will, mate. I don't think any other rec to will. There's always going to be that, oh, fucking hell, you just scatter CVs, you throw shit at a wall and hope it sticks. And sorry, just to carry on there, like one thing that I always brief clients on when I'm speaking to them on the phone and I'm pitching, my services, it is that, this is the longevity. This is something which I might not get right straight away. This is something which I'm willing to work with you on. But there's lots of ways that you can do it, and I think, it's difficult because you get so many no's. I think in terms of resilience in the market,
it's having the courage of your convictions. Because I think I gave you a lead, didn't I, when we first spoke about coming on the podcast? And I spoke to my client, and they said, we loved him, but he's 22.5%, and he's quite steadfast in his fees, and there's no rebate or whatever. And I was like, and I thought, fucking fair play to you, mate.
I wouldn't budge.
Fair play to you.
Yeah. So again, appreciate you for doing that, Chris. You put me in touch with a great business that was doing my market, and I know my value as a recruiter. I turn away business, left, right, and centre. But this business was exciting to work with. It was on the outskirts of London. I've scaled many businesses from 3 heads to 10 plus with me and my team. And in terms of my time on that, that's what I charge.
But that's why you'll be successful, because you attract the right customer and the right client. That relates to me. When I first started out as an NED, I charged a really low day rate just to get myself going. And then within the first call, I was giving away all my IP, giving away all my stuff. And I thought, no, fuck this. I put my prices up twice, and then put them up again. And now, my price is my price. And that is, there's no discount very rarely. And I think that obviously market, you have to change a little bit. But I think sometimes we just hold your nerve. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be? If you want to be a premium brand, be premium. And I think the one thing, again, to go back to trying to stand out as a rec to rec, your service is more than just CVs. And again, going into that consultancy piece, it's understanding their vision. Do they have the infrastructure to be able to take on X amount of people? If not, how come? What does your leadership team look like? Are they too top heavy? Do you need more juniors? In terms of other rec to recs, they do just throw CVs out there. And the one thing that I've done previously is, I've spoke to, I'm always speaking to my MD, Matthew Sullivan, with ideas. I've got loads of them, 99% of shit, right? But that one is gold dust. And I'll tell you about one. Go on.
I spoke to a client. I said, in an ideal scenario, like, you give me the exact person that you want, hand paint it. We want everyone to be like, Tom. Who's Tom? Tom's our top biller. Okay, so what's Tom like? Oh, we wish that he knew. And I thought about it. I thought, how can we know what Tom's like as a person?
You don't.
There's so many personality tests out there. So we will pay for a psychometric test. Let's do that. It's quite a large sum of money. Let's understand, what Tom's way of thinking is, and then we will then psychometric test candidates, and then we can go, this person's like Tom because of this person's like Tom because of that. Do you want to interview? Now that's, the highest level of services that we can do as an R2R. But it's just more than a CV, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There's just separating yourself from everyone else. And it's funny how recruiters have a go at R2Rs for sending out mail shots, which what they do themselves. And also if I've been doing this for 25 years now, and I've spoken to many different businesses. If I was to draw up 100 websites, 99 of them will say pretty much exactly the same thing, but in a slightly different way. And we've got this unique culture. And for me, it's about understanding what that culture is, the vision, the mission, the values, where you're going, and not saying the same stuff, but kind of like, yes, the KPIs are important, but I think it's about how can you be unique? And I think it goes back to this personality, this personal branding stuff. Yes, the stuff you mentioned, but so I think where I've got my success is that I'm out there on LinkedIn. I'm pretty prominent on there, but I'm visible, and it's myself. I'm not trying to. Whereas if I went on LinkedIn 15 years ago, the Chris O'Connell there with a suit, I would have got fucking nowhere. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I think you can have all the process and stuff like that, but I think the whole kind of the human side is really important.
No, you're right. I think something I've learned again through, I was going to say trial and error. I don't believe in trial and error. For me, it's test and learn. One thing I've learned is that culture is everything, right? I could have a profile which is perfect for the business. It might be a new business. I know exactly what markets they do. Like, oh my God, it's a match made in heaven. The candidate's fully exclusive. I'm not going to send them anywhere else. Put them together. And then it's like, he's too much of a wide boy or whatever that may be. And it's like, right, okay. So one thing that I really try to understand is that when you are doing business development, it's so crucial to go into that business that you're working with, that you're partnered with, and just embrace the vibe. Speak to the consultants on the sales floor. Go make a coffee with the cappuccino lady, or embrace everything in that, because that's the main thing. People buy people at the end of the day.
Totally. I remember when I used to network 25 years ago, I broke into Orange and O2 and all these massive businesses, and I used to just get the family tree, get the organogram. I'd start in the support department, then I go to admin. I get to know the names. Went my way up there. It took me a couple of weeks, and when I got to the directors, I knew all about the business, and even the colour of the walls. All this kind of, so then I could have a conversation, and it's like, why not?
So moving on then, talk to me about base mindset. So what is it?
So I believe a lot of organisations, they hire on skills and experience, and they fire on behaviours and attitude. So BASE, I believe that behaviours and attitude are just as important, or if not more important, than skills and experience. So that's where the base comes from.
Wow, because it's at the start as well.
And all base and basic sounds quite good. But then I also, they're called mindset. But mindset trumps everything.
Of course.
So that's where it's come from. And then there's 6, my website's down at the moment, it's being reconstructed. But there's 6 facets in my logo. There's business and finance, there's health and fitness, there's relationships, there's purpose, there's wealth, and there's personal development. So there's 6 things there. And I think that you need to have all 6 of these things really firing or doing something to have a fulfilled life. Because if you've got poor relationships outside of work, you're going to have poor relationships inside of work. If you haven't really got a purpose, then you might be really hard. So it's all that kind of. So I do a little bit of kind of life coaching and that kind of stuff. That's born out of my own experience, where I put 99.9% of my time and effort into my business, and I fucked up my relationships, I fucked up my finances, I fucked up all the purpose. So I think that more often than not, the business problems aren't necessarily business problems, they're people problems, and sometimes the people problems are not to do with what's going on inside of work, it's what they're doing outside of work. So you can have all the operations, all the KPIs, all that kind of stuff, but if that consultant is doing drugs or he's got mental health or he's not doing all the right things, then you've got to get to know that, you've got to understand that as much as all the other stuff.
Like at the moment I'm working 7 till 6:30.
Wow.
Till 7, not taking lunches, burning myself out. I am.
I've been there a few times,
I am,
mate.
right? And it's because I'm building this market. I'm dreaming about candidates. Like, it's weird. I would never tell them, but I'm waking up at 3 a.m. and it's my life. Recruitment is a way of life, isn't it? It is a lifestyle,
it
right?
Is literally,
and it does, and it can, and it will take over your life if you let it. And I think it's so important that you sharing that, because having a work-life balance, I know it's a buzzword, right, for a lot of people, but it's so important. Is there anything that you would recommend in particular? I know personally I've been doing a lot of kickboxing. I've got a boxing background, but it's just something new, and I like the discipline behind it. But again, like I've mentioned, I've not done it in 3 months. I can feel my mental health deflating.
I think some form of exercise is really important. It doesn't necessarily have to be as strong as kickboxing, but I think even getting up and going for a walk, I'm massive into my walks. But I think it's about starting the day right. So I mean, I've got weekly planners for my clients, but within my weekly planner or my, I've got like in my diary, I've got my gym or my PT session. So I treat like, I segment time out in my diary. It might be in the middle of the day to actually do that personal development. So for me, I do a lot of meditation as well, a lot of walking. I've got a personal trainer. My diet has improved a lot. I think people bang on about diet, but it's really, really important.
Yeah.
It's really important. So if you're drinking and you're not eating, it's a bit like if you're drinking, at least try and have a good diet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think you can't do everything, but for me, also, I've tried to go to bed at a reasonable hour, but I'm kind of slipping back into it. So I think you've just got to reassess it, almost like, when you do an evaluation of your business, like how is it doing on CVs and jobs and interviews, why don't you do an evaluation of your life, an audit of your friends, audit of the content that you're absorbing, or audit of the conversations you're having with yourself, how many sessions you are having, kind of like be the CEO of your life, not just your business. So what I say is, it's not what's right for me isn't necessarily right for you. Kickboxing, I'll be terrible at that. It's not right for me, but I love my long walks. I go to the gym, but I think exercise, diet, but in a nutshell, the value and energy and effort you put in analysing your business and your bottom line, if you're putting lesser emphasis on yourself, you've got it wrong. Yeah. You've got to treat yourself as your business.
Yeah. I think something you said then in regards to starting the day right is a big thing.
Yeah.
Just making your fucking bed, like, it's so simple,
mate.
but doing that task,
yeah,
I feel accomplished. I know it's so silly.
Yeah.
But I mean, my
totally.
missus stays in bed now, like, because I'm getting up earlier, so
Yeah.
can't exactly.
But I've also got this. I used to have a whiteboard in my bedroom, but I moved house now. It's in my home office.
A
But
whiteboard, yes, I've got one too.
yeah, and I've got my values on there, like
Yeah,
discipline and empathy and all this kind of stuff. I've got like I love you, Chris, on there.
Love
and
that.
Respect yourself. So every time I wake up, I'm absorbing that.
Affirmations.
And it's
yeah.
people think it's bullshit, but it's not. But journaling as well, writing some shit down is massive as well.
Do you know what? I found that to be so true as well. You end up writing a load of shit,
Yeah.
but it almost like stores that information as well, and it
Yeah.
almost like kickstarts your brain and creates more ideas through just journaling.
Yeah.
It's great to do it in, I know it sounds weird, but in like parks and stuff, in
Yeah,
nature.
yeah,
You
of
mentioned you
course.
like to go camping and glamping with your kids and stuff
Yeah.
like that as well. That's something which I'm it's a known fact that I think most humans are living in a concrete jungle now. They're surrounded by
Yeah.
fucking big buildings.
Yeah,
They're glued
mate.
to the phones. Just
Yeah.
getting away, man, is a big
This
thing.
is going to sound a bit strange. Like, there's a place called Westonbirt Arboretum near Bristol. It's basically this forest of beautiful trees. And I was going around the trees and actually hugging the trees. I
Love
put it on
that, yeah.
Facebook. My mates fucking ripped the shit out of me, man. But I could feel the energy of the trees, and that sounds
yeah.
silly, but the nature, the water and the trees and all that kind of stuff, it's so good for you, man. And I think that when you're in office 24/7 or whatever you're doing, it's like, just go, as I say, even going out and seeing the fresh air can have a massive impact on, like, cause I've been feeling a little bit down lately for the last couple of weeks about something. And when I'm lying in bed and not doing anything, I force myself to get up. Even going out for a walk to the coffee shop, I just felt immediately better.
Yeah.
And it's just little things like that. It's just sometimes doing the little tiny basics. So if you're talking about the mental health and when you're down, if I was giving advice to anybody, start small, but do something each day that's going to benefit you, and then you'll do something a little bit bigger and do something a little bit bigger. I think where people go wrong is, I'm in this hell, I don't know how to get out of it. I've got this debt, I've got this. Let's just go for a walk today. And tomorrow we'll go for a longer walk.
Yeah.
And the day after that we'll have a nice smoothie, we won't have a beer, and build it up from there, and you start to get the self-respect back.
Yeah, build it up. I think something that, I'm lucky to have a loving mother. Like, she's my biggest rock in my life.
Nice.
And she's always like envisioned this picture for me where every day, if you lay a brick, you can start to build the foundations. And I think I used to say, Mum, what the fuck you on about? Like a brick, like, do you know what I mean? But when she like walked me through it, and you can, choose your own brick, right? So a brick could be choosing the stairs today.
Yeah.
A brick could be going on a walk
Absolutely.
today. you can choose that brick.
Yeah,
And
totally.
when I get to the end of the day, sometimes I struggle to think, shit, what the fuck was my brick?
Mm.
And it might be, do you know what? I was in the office at 7. I started at 8.
Yeah.
I was in an hour early. I fucking
Absolutely.
laid a brick today. And just finding something that
Yeah.
you have done can
And then
just
before
have
you
such
know
a
it,
big...
the brick's a wall, and then the wall's a house, and the house is an estate.
That's it. But then, as we know, that can get
Yeah.
knocked down as quickly as it was built.
Yeah.
So on that as well, if we could give maybe, you know, 3 tips to young entrepreneurs out there who might be in a space where Chris was at the start of this business, with the mindset that you had in terms of you were just untouchable, you wanted to take over the world, what would that be?
I would say try and tune into your values. So we all want the success, the trappings. We all want it yesterday. So for me, taking that pause, and it's going to sound difficult because when you're young, you tend to want to, you know, have the more energy. But I think slowing down to speed up and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So as an example, I ask my prospective CEOs, I'll take them on a discovery call and say, Chris, we've got 12 staff now. We want to get it to 50. We've got 2 million quid. We want to get it to 20 million. And I say, why? And half of them don't even fucking know. So there's a lot of people in this world, right? They're going to work 9 to 5, coming home, getting the money, but there's no purpose to it. So I think it's about trying to understand why you're doing what you're doing. If it's for the money, that's great, but why? Because it wants to get, more often than not, it's because you want more freedom. You want to have more experiences. Ultimately, it's because you want to have more freedom, more experiences. So I think when you do start to get successful, it's that life thing. Don't just put all your eggs in the business basket. And the business guru is going to go. Some business gurus are going to go, yeah, but you have to be laser focused. I don't necessarily agree with that. Yes, you do with business, but don't take your eye off the ball with your relationships, your health, all that kind of stuff. So just have that perspective, zoom out a little bit, you know?
Take a step back, look at yourself from a fly on a wall. Yeah.
And patience is actually a virtue. I think that I'd sooner you execute 2 or 3 things really well than try and do 50 things really, really badly. But also, mate, you know, if you don't try and fail, you don't grow anywhere. So you can talk a good game, but you got to take action.
Yeah.
You've got to take action. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But then it's that's it. And I think sometimes, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can get to a point where there's no action proceeding because of your intrinsic motivations. And back to what you were saying before, you know, I think that you struggle to actually comprehend what your own vision is now. I think when you were saying you're sort of like, actually, I don't know what I want next.
Yeah. Only because that I used to be kind of like, I want to get to 10 million, 50 million, 20 million. Now I'm like, it's not a number. It's not an object. It's not a material thing. It's growth. It's helping and supporting and advising as many people as I can, being a better version of myself and having an impact, which you can't really measure, can you? So I haven't got, you know, my podcast is okay. I've got a few subscribers there. I'm not interested in getting to 100,000 followers. I'm not interested in that. I'm more interested in being the best version I can. And that sounds woolly, but to me it doesn't, because it's what I found is when you set targets like that, more often than not, when you get there, you're quite disappointed.
Happy Sexy Millionaire. Have you read that book?
No, I want to, though.
It's a good book. It's all about that.
Yeah.
It's all about, you know, having like that idea that when you are here, you will be happy.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and then when you get there, you're not.
I used to be like that. When I get the girlfriend, when I get the better car, when I get the house, I'm going to feel this, I'm going to feel that. No,
when
mate,
this, when
you need
that.
to feel now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think exactly that. You're a living example of that. I definitely recommend it. I'm not the best reader out there because of my ADHD. I normally sort of.
I love the audiobooks, mate. I prefer to listen to it because it absorbs it, and it's also you can do other stuff at the same time.
Yeah, you can. So, like hug trees.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
And other stuff.
Yeah. Top tips then for like people thinking of suicide. What would they be? And I'll just touch up on that first. So I read something or listened, I can't remember, and what that said was that people want to kill themselves, and if you do, you should go and jump in the sea, because you will watch your body fight to survive. Most people don't want to kill themselves; they want to kill something within themselves.
Wow.
And that was quite a wholesome point, I felt. What are your thoughts on that?
I've never heard that before. So you're saying there that if you do that, you're more likely to fight and want to not do it. My thoughts on the subject of suicide is, having tried it myself a few times and also lost 3 people to it, is that it's something that should never be diminished. It's just something that never be taken lightly. I think there's a big stigma around it. I think that I've heard stories, well, he's got kids, how could he be so selfish? When you're in that situation, believe me, you think it's the most selfless thing you don't want to be around. You think you're doing the world a favour. So suicidal ideation, when you're having those thoughts, I need to be careful, because giving advice might be right for one person but not right for another. Generally, what I would say is that you're not alone. There's many people that are vocal about it. There's many people in this world that have it quite a lot, but would never admit it. And the best analogy I can say is that this too shall pass. Nothing in this world is permanent, only change, I think. And I think that I've studied Carl Jung, who's a great philosopher, and he wrapped it up quite well. I think he deemed it like an American football field, where you've got an end zone at either end. One end zone is when you're down, depressed and suicidal, and the other end zone is when you're absolutely flying, and you don't want to be in either of those zones for too long. When you're flying really, really high, you can bet your bottom dollar something challenging is going to come around the corner. And when you're deep down, you always can come back up. So I think that it's just trying to ride it out, trying to be patient, trying to talk to somebody as well. And as I said earlier, go back to basics. When you're in that situation, everything is fucking difficult. Everything's challenging. Everything is like, if you can just do one thing, pick up the phone to somebody, go for a walk, start off really small, get into a routine, have those small wins, and claw yourself back up.
Learn to love yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's easy to say when you're in that situation, but almost like, I've been in that situation so many times. I've forced myself to write down, what am I proud of, what are the good things, and then that really helps, just to remind yourself, because that negative talk, even when you're writing down, you can say I'm a great dad. No, you're not. Your voice can say that, but you just got to just battle through it. And that voice in your head isn't necessarily your voice. The thoughts that you have aren't necessarily your thoughts. They're thoughts. This is going to sound strange, but I know for a fact that the thoughts you have in your head, they can be infiltrated from previous experiences, a movie you watch, all that kind of stuff. That voice in your head isn't necessarily
the thoughts aren't
you.
real.
Yeah,
the thoughts aren't real. It's a fact. Lastly, then, so what is Chris proud of?
Finally, I can say I'm proud of myself. I looked at the camera then when I said that. So
I like it. Yeah, I look at it too. I'm proud of myself.
I'm proud of my wonderful 3 boys. I'm proud of my achievements in business. I'm massively proud of my resilience. And I'm proud of my vulnerability. And I'm proud to be here, mate. I'm proud. I'm honoured and touched that you've asked me. And yeah, I'm going to get quite emotional, but there's loads more stuff I'm proud of. I'm proud of how I hold myself. There's things I'm not proud of, but see, there I go again.
That's what I mean.
There you go again.
That's the battle within your mind. There's a lot of things that you're proud of. You've got a whiteboard that you're implementing strategies on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
You're here today with me. I'm sure you've got have you got any plans this weekend?
I've got my kids for half term, so I'm going to take them pumpkin hunting, whatever that is.
Yeah, get drawing on them, carving.
Yeah.
That's something to be proud of, mate. And I'm really, really proud of you for coming on this podcast. Like I said, this was a real interesting one for me, because there was lots of like elements that resonate with me and my father's journey, and I'm sure that many people at home as well, 1, will be proud of you, and 2, will find this very insightful, very informative, very heartwarming, and very educational. And yeah, Cheers, Chris.
Mate, absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on, buddy.
No worries,
Great
buddy.
to meet you.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.